Back here on Good Morning Lake Martin, 15 past the hour. I love off-air conversations.
I wish you had a camera on the website. You could go.
No, probably not.
Come on, Kevin, let's take care of some business, all right?
Business. Here we go.
Halfway apart, from behind the
I
scenes.
want to ask you a question.
Britt, I want to talk to you a little more about the first book, the Anti-Bully Program.
Sure.
Some of the basic steps, if you could tell folks today, when you go and give a seminar or speak to a school, some of the points that you hit on, that helps not only kids but parents and even administrators to start to deal with this immediately. Because from what I hear you say, the points that you give you can almost use instantly or immediately.
Yeah. That's the goal. So both books were written from the same perspective. Is I want somebody to be able to read it in 90 minutes, and I want you to be able to start putting a solution, a plan of action, into action within 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. Because I don't believe a bully situation should last longer than 3 days maximum. And that's just because how long do you need to get an appointment with let's say a principal or a teacher or whomever, so that you can come together and get resolution.
Sure.
When I hear these stories of this child was bullied for 18 months and then all of a sudden they committed suicide or did something else, that just boggles my mind because there's no way that should be happening. That just should not be happening.
Yeah.
So, what we try and get across to the parents is, look, you have to take repeated, consistent action, and if the first person you talk to doesn't help you, you need to go up the food chain, so to speak. And don't take no for an answer, and don't be put off. Again, parents run into the same thing that kids do. I sent an email to the principal. I hear this all the time. I sent an email to the teacher, but they didn't respond to me. Well, my first question is, how long are you going to wait for that? Right? This is your child's self-esteem, their confidence, potentially their personal safety. That's got to be worth a lot more than an email.
And it's got to be in the hospital and deal with it. No, let's do it now.
Exactly. You send an email, that's fine, but that should be with a plan of, I'm coming down to see you in an hour. I need some of your time, and at least set an appointment there in the office to meet with the principal after school or before school. Or,
not that hard to do.
Absolutely not.
Appropriate, but it's non-negotiable at that point.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. And when principals, for the most part these days, they hear that there's a bully problem, they're dialed in.
Yeah.
This is a big issue now.
Yeah.
And so people are more dialed in. It's not like, maybe when we were kids, I need to sit down with the principal when they might schedule you out for some reason, or, because things weren't happening, when we were kids like they're happening now. Sure. And so it's a bigger issue, and it's a lot easier to get an appointment. It's a lot easier to get some help if you continue to ask. I got to say, school officials have a lot on their plate. I mean, they got a lot of work for what they do, and so it's going to be the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. But they're going to be focused in if you are up front and say, Mr. Smith, I need to meet with you. My son is being bullied at recess by so-and-so, and this has been going on now for 2 days. I just found out about it. And you can give them all the facts. Then they can go, okay, Mrs. Jones, I hear you. We're going to meet right now at and you can come in and have some resolution. But if a parent, let me back up. Everybody likes to know what somebody wants to see them about, right? Because school administrators deal a lot with somebody wants their time, but they don't necessarily know what they want their time for. You could be trying to pitch them on something.
Sure.
You could be trying to, change some kind of curriculum for whatever it is. So you have to give all the information in advance, as much as you can anyway, about what you want, why you want it, when you want it, so that they can make a good decision about, okay, I can probably move this aside for 20 minutes and meet with this parent. That's a lot more important than the meeting with the candy bar guy who wants to sell candy bars to the school or whatever.
Sure, I got you.
And with the list, I think it actually strips that down concisely and go, wow, everything's a matter of fact, almost like you're doing a brief of some kind. You go, oh, wow. Already got information, so we can now act upon it. Get all the parties involved that need to be.
And one of the things that your book does, it actually gives you kind of templates so that to make that easy. Right. So if you're not sure what do I need to give them and what do I not need to give them, when I read through it, that's one of the things I noticed. It's step by step.
A, B, C, 1, 2, 3.
That's something that it provides that I think maybe parents struggle with, and even listen, school administrators struggle with.
Absolutely.
They need to know what they need to gather, and you've broken this down in the book to know exactly what they need, when they need. And that's one of the reasons it's such a great resource.
Yep.
Agreed.
Let me ask you about some of the signs. as a parent, I'm a parent, and I kind of know what to look for, but maybe a parent is not so in tune. What are some of the early signs that parents, and maybe even administrators, because they're under an obligation as well, what are some of the first things they start to see?
The biggest thing is just some type of a radical change in behavior. So if you've got a kid who's outgoing and smiling and happy, and all of a sudden they're withdrawn and they're not so happy anymore, they're not talking to you, that should be a warning sign in my opinion.
Grades plummet, things like that.
Yeah, the grades start to deteriorate, just total change in character, because they're going through something in their head, just like we all do. We have a stressful situation in our lives. We all tend to, at least for a while, withdraw. We're trying to become very cerebral. We're trying to figure out what to do. And while that's happening, the things in our life can definitely start to deteriorate a little bit. While your focus is going on, how am I going to get Jimmy to stop punching me in the lunch line? You stop focusing on, hey, I got to get this school project done. I want to go play with my friends, etc. It becomes all-consuming. Because, when you're growing up as a child, there's certain phases in your life where you kind of go from reaching out and being jovial and happy to being very internal and thinking about you become more the center of the universe, and things change. And so that's the primary thing. I do give a number of warning signs in the books, but they're really the same, very similar in cyberbullying as they are in bullying. Change in behavior, grades plummet, socialization changes. They can be a lot more moody. Outbursts happen for no reason. And I'm sure there's some people going, well, that's my teenager. Yeah, I got a 15-year-old too, I get it.
You know how that works.
But the one thing, when my oldest son, he kind of went through some of those changes, as all teenagers do, and we just kept talking to him. Is everything okay at school? How you doing?
Got communication line?
Yeah, we just make sure that we're constantly talking to him. And my wife and I are a pretty good team. We talk from different angle. We try and approach the situation from a totally different spot to see if we get different answers or things aren't consistent. And sometimes it's not bullying. It's just kids. That's the phase of life.
Yeah.
But you don't know till you ask.
Yeah.
Roger.
And that's the important thing. You can't just go, oh, he's 15. He's just going to spend the time in his room, and he's going to be a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Sure. There's some of that.
Yeah.
But you got to ask. You got to be engaged.
When you speak, of course, the majority of probably the teachers administrators that you speak to are parents as well. But is it kind of a different presentation for parents as it is for administrators? Is that pretty much the same, or do you deal with those separately?
It's pretty much the same presentation, but just taken from a slightly different angle. With the teachers, it's like, I want to help you open the lines of communication between the students and the parents. I want to make your job easier so they're not wasting your time with things that are not bullying issues,
right.
And they can come to you with concise issues and problems, whatever it is, ready to go, right? With the parents, it's, let's take the emotion out of the situation, right? Same thing.
Right.
Let's get all the facts and decide about if it's really bullying or not bullying.
What action to take.
And I do explain to parents, a lot of what your kids go through is not bullying, although they may use that term. You can't just jump on it and assume.
Yeah.
And as we as parents, our children are our most valuable thing that we have, and so we tend to get emotional about those things pretty quickly.
Sure.
Totally understandable.
Yep.
But there's a level of fact finding that you kind of get.
I call it the Sherlock Holmes effect.
There you go.
In the magnification process, you've got to do your due diligence. You've got to fill out the form, essentially, like you noticed in the book, and you've got to ask all the questions from different angles, and then you can go, that's not bullying.
Yeah.
That's kids being kids.
Yeah.
That's,
It's just kids being selfish or...
Yeah,
Right.
It's a different way to handle this now.
But it's also a learning lesson from that point forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not bullying, it's
negotiate
this.
life.
And you're going to run into people like this through your whole life.
Yep.
And here's some good ways how to handle that. Here's what I've done in my past on how to do that. So it's a great way to share life experience with your children, which, who's the most valuable resource we have? The older,
Absolutely.
more mature, more well-rounded people in our society. And we're becoming those.
Yep.
And we need to
Sooner than later.
much sooner than we want to believe.
Amen.
And we got to share that with our kids, otherwise some of these skills are gone, and socialization skills have deteriorated.
Yeah. Or someone else is going to put in there and it will not be necessarily what we want it to be. Or be productive for them.
Our socialization skills deteriorate, go to the phone, the computers, etc., and it's a problem.
Sure. When we come back, we're going to go to this next step, another problem, same but different.
Right.
We'll talk about that right after the break.